Hey guys, it's Selwen here, and today let's take a look at the Distraction Warlock in BFA. As always, this is beta, so there's always room for change in the future, so take that disclaimer in mind. Now, what happened to Distraction? Well, not a lot, just some natural evolution to what we already had, and it's all pretty much a step in the right direction. So let's look at the spellbook here and see what's gone and what's been added. Well, first of all, your resources, soul shards stayed, you have 5 still, and you're gonna generate the fragments all the same as in Legion, but mana management is gone. Freaking finally. No more life tap, no more running out of mana and shit, just gone. It's still technically there, but it's just like the frost or fire mage mana, practically non-existent. It's all about soul shards now. Artifact ability is also gone, as most of the traits, which isn't really a big deal. It did help on generating soul shards, but the existent abilities make up for that loss. You will probably miss more of how cool the portals looked, especially the fire one, but yeah, not a huge loss. But besides that, your main arsenal has stayed mostly the same. So what we get here on the spellbook, besides all of these obvious things, there's your good old Chaos Bolt, all the same, costs 2 soul shards, always deals a critical strike and damage is increased by critical strike chance. What you get though is a new amazing effects. I mean, just look at that, that for sure is gonna increase your DPS by at least 40%, but you know Chaos Bolt, it is what always has been your big dick spell. Conflict rate, again the same-ish with a cool new effect. As to charges, generates 5 soul shard fragments. So if you don't really know, fragments is what makes up a soul shard in Destruction. 1 full soul shard is 10 fragments, 5 fragments makes half of 1 soul shard. But Backdraft has been baked in Conflict Rate, so baseline, reducing the cast time of your next Incinerate or Chaos Bolt by 30%. Only 1 charge though, however a talent adds the other. A good change, as we always took that talent, no questions asked, so it opened up the other choices in your talents, but we'll get there in a minute. And Havoc also went through a small change. The timer is still the same, but it now has a cooldown of 25 seconds instead of 45 seconds. So it's like you always taking Wreak Havoc talent now, which is great. Thank you for that, Blizz. So you're just gonna be even better at cleaving without having to sacrifice one of your talents. Shadow Fury has been made baseline as well to open up the other talent choices, also a great change. Emulate all the same, also your dot generating a soul shard fragment per tick and 50% chance to generate another on critical strikes. Incinerate the same as in Legion, 2 fragments plus 1 more on critical strikes, and Rain of Fire also the same at a 3 soul shard cost. All with the new awesome looking effects, as you can see, very satisfying to use. Even the sound effects adds to this. Looking forward to see what they will look like with the green effect from live. Sadly in the beta I cannot see that because this is a pre-made character. As for the damage right now, overall doesn't really matter since it's all due to change, but Destro is doing pretty well on that department. Pets stay the same also. Your go-to for damage still is your Imp, although the damage is no longer increased on emulated targets, I guess to give you more freedom to use different pets. Although Blood Pack makes a return for the Imp to increase your stamina, and the ability on use from the commands Demon is now the Dispel, not the shitty heal that he got, which is cool. The others stayed, although your Succubi, whatever, has a slow for 10 seconds. Now another big change was on your Summon Infernal. Your pet summons were mostly removed, so Doomguard is gone, but Infernal is back, but is newly and improved to be much more awesome. So now it's not only a pet that deals AoE damage primarily, but also crucial to your overall rotation. So when you have it active, it now generates 1 soul shard fragment every 0.5 seconds for 30 seconds. A simple yet great addition, because let's be honest, in Legion our cooldowns we're a little bit shit. So now when you have this big boy active, you're just going to be able to get into this bursty type of window for extra chaos bolts, which is awesome, compensating for the loss on the artifact portals. And it's further improved with your talents, but more on that in a bit. As for the rest, is the same. Your defensive is still here, not on the global cooldown, so yay. And backdraft, like I said previously, mastery is still the same, as well as your soul leech. Now let's look at those talents, shall we? So on the first tier, backdraft, like I said, was made baseline, so was replaced with flash over, increases conflict rate damage by 10% and gives another stack of backdraft. So you get the old backdraft back. It doesn't seem to be a must now because you get that single stack for free, plus eradication is now in this tier. It was nerfed, increasing damage by only 10% as opposed to 15%, but lasts for the same duration. Now, they do what we expect. Eradication will obviously be the choice once you get enough haste, most likely, and flashover is like the easier choice kind of thing. But besides those, you also get a new talent in this tier as Roaring Blaze was moved, which is Soulfire. Yes, Soulfire is back. When was the last time we had this, like TBC, before it was moved to demo? And it cost like a soul shard back when soul shards had to be farmed, and you had them on your bags, and using a Soulfire was like a huge deal. Wow, I went on a big memory lane there. But yeah, it's back and is now sort of a cooldown of 45 seconds. Costs 1 soul shard, huge cast time, and basically acts as a chaos bolt, always dealing a critical strike, and critical strike chance increases its damage. I mean, I don't really get the purpose of this ability. Sure, it deals a buttload of damage, and you can combine with some cooldowns in a way, but it's essentially stronger than a Chaos Bolt with a different effect. And when you think about it, it's really quite boring. How powerful it will be in comparison to the other choices? Well, time will tell, but yeah, really not that interesting, especially when later talents kinda wants you to use Chaos Bolt instead during the cooldown windows, removing the Soulfire synergy with them a little bit. Second tier was also revamped. Reverse Entropy used to be your way to never worry about mana, but also the worst DPS choice. That ain't an issue anymore, so you get a chance when using your spells to gain 15% haste. Pretty decent. Haste is generally very important to you to make your rotation flow better. Gameplay wise, it's haste. Internal combustion is slightly more interesting, so Chaos Bolt now consumes up to 5 seconds of immolate damage over time effect on your target, instantly dealing that much damage. Now at first it's kinda of a weird idea, and yes, you're gonna have to immolate more often since you're taking a big chunk of the timer, but what's interesting about it is that the instant damage that it does, it counts to about 5 immolate sticks, instantly giving you about 5 soul shard fragments after each Chaos Bolt, and not even adding the crits here, which, you know, can give you some extra, meaning it's just gonna allow you to get fragments quicker, with the downside that you have to immolate more often. In a way, it fights against haste, especially with a reverse entropy here. Interesting choice to make between these two. Shadowburn is still here and is just meh. It does what it always has done. It can be worth in like dungeons and world stuff, but right now as it stands it even feels weak for that, since it's only giving you 3 fragments instead of 5, and the extra 5 if the target dies, as it is on live. So yeah, feels a little bit weak. Next tier, same as in live, nothing to see. Now this tier suffered some changes as well. Is now your tier dedicated to AoE. Soul Harvest has been removed, so you still get Cataclysm, which looks great as ever, works all the same, applying immolate to everyone and just dealing a lot of burst damage. Fire and Brimstone was slightly nerfed, so in live the way it works is that your Incinerate cleaves all targets nearby, and that's it. And still does that, but the cleave targets only take 40% of the damage now, and generates 1 fragment as opposed to the 3 that you get on live. I guess this is just to break the dominance of this talent, to open up the other choices, and to be honest, still works perfectly fine. Just gonna make Cataclysm more appealing in some situations, and the new one, Inferno, which is pretty straightforward. When Rain of Fire deals damage, you have a 20% chance to get a Soul Shard fragment, which is pretty decent. Your AoE damage just gets all focused on Rain of Fire, so I guess you can work better in pure AoE situations with a lot of mobs, so you get a lot of ticks of Rain of Fire on there, so you get more of those procs, where you can just immolate and Rain of Fire, and you probably just gonna ignore Incinerates for the most part, and get the fragments passively through your immolate ticks, and then the Rain of Fire ticks as well. Next, the same as in Legion, since Shadow Fury is now baseline, you now get a cooldown reduction instead, and the rest is the same. You get your portal and all of that. Following tier, it used to be your Grimoires, but now that sort of changed. Roaring Blaze is now here, adding a dot to your conflict rates for 6 seconds. An easy, not have to think about it much choice. Grimoire of Sacrifice is here as well to remove your pet if you really hate it. As for the damage, I mean, I still don't know if it's actually worth taking, because I know that pets can get really annoying, and I wish this talent was sometimes a little bit better than it is, but again, numbers talk, we'll just have to wait and see. Grimoire of Service was removed, which is so weird on live that you play Destruction, yet you have 2 cooldowns that involve pet summons, which is quite odd and not very interesting, so I'm glad that they removed it. Grimoire of Supremacy was now changed, you no longer get those permanent pets, but now it improves your awesome new Infernal. While you have Infernal active, every Soul Shard you spend increases your Chaos Ball damage by 8%. Simple, like the Infernal itself, yet pretty great, to once again boost that bursty window that you get. That is the type of talent that is just gonna get better and better as you get more gear and skill as well, trying to go with as much Soul Shards as you can to use as much Chaos Bolts as you can to make the most out of it, using with things like Bloodlust and combining with all these sort of effects to stack that buff high. Pretty cool to see here. Finally some good cooldowns to properly reward as you play. And last tier, Soul Conduit still is in place, still does what it does, mostly useful in multi-targets when you're doing a lot of Rainfire, so that procs more often, combining pretty well with Inferno back here, so when you combine these two, you can get a lot of Soul Shards passively, which is pretty cool. Channel Demon Fire still here, works as it always has. But now you get a new cooldown here in the form of a talent called Dark Soul. Infuses your soul with unstable power, increasing your critical strike chance by 30% for 20 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. This is basically a soul harvest, but catered more to destruction. Obviously, crit is much more interesting to us as opposed to the flat damage increase of the old soul harvest. We're gonna get more fragments with this active, increase your Chaos Ball damage when you stack this up with your Infernal and the Grimoire of Supremacy talent, and even reverse entropy if possible to really get some pretty cool results. Although you might get to a point where you are overburdened with Soul Shards. Since Infernal is giving you them, Dark Soul is gonna give you more since your immolate ticks are gonna crit, so are your Incinerates and etc, but that's not really an issue for Destruction. It just means that you can almost spam Chaos Bolts at its point, which are now gonna do a 30% more damage, again due to Dark Soul, and ever increasing damage due to the Supremacy talent. Overall, this cooldown stacked will obviously offer great results and more importantly, are fun to use, especially in the Infernal, which was exactly what Destruction was lacking. Dark Soul, sadly, it is on a global cooldown, so you're gonna have to slowly pop all of those cooldowns, but hey, at first when I look at this talent, I was like, this is kinda boring, just increasing my crit chance, but remember, Destruction interacts with Critical Strike in a much more interesting way as most specs, so it is a pretty cool cooldown indeed, especially again when you combine it with Infernal. It's not something that you probably want to use it solo. But anyway, guys, Destruction also gets a seal of approval. It still is and does what you expect from Legion, mostly plays the same, which is not a bad thing, but you get these new cooldowns on top, some new talents to spice things up, and it's pretty damn decent. We'll just have to wait and see how they will fare on the numbers departments, but I'll have a feeling they will do pretty decently. And guys, that covers it. Do let me know what you all think of the new-ish Destruction Warlock. Write down in these comments below, like and sub, and hit that bell icon for more videos like this. As always, have a fantastic day everyone, and see ya!